Bitch is a Bad Word podcast is for informational purposes only and reflects the opinions of the host and guests. It contains explicit content and discusses sensitive topics such as domestic abuse, sexual assault, and violence, which may be distressing to some listeners. Please take care of your emotional well-being while listening. While we strive for accuracy, we make no warranties about the completeness or reliability of the information, and any reliance on it is at your own risk. We do not endorse third-party views and are not liable for any defamatory claims. Listeners should conduct their own research and consult professionals before making decisions. If you or someone you know is in danger, please call 911 or contact the National Domestic Abuse Hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 800-799-7233 or text START, S-T-A-R-T, to 88788. We've got your back, besties. Caliber Studios has not independently verified the information you're about to hear. Welcome back to this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word. Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm one mom with 4 kids and 0 fancy letters behind my name. I bring on all of the experts to help us unpack all of the abuse, all of the trauma, all of the bad words that have been slung in our faces as we navigate this road through and out of domestic abuse and toxic relationships together. We are building you a bestie toolkit to empower you, to teach you the things that I wish I had known. We are so grateful to you joining us in this movement. We are the biggest, baddest bestie gang ever. And we got your back. I want to say that there's always a trigger warning. The trigger warning is that we talk about all aspects of domestic abuse, violence, all the things. If you need to take a break, if you need to pause this episode, please do. We're here. We'll be waiting. Take care of yourself. You know, we really encourage you to do whatever you need to do to take care of your heart and your mind and come back to us. We're here. Your safety is also the most important thing for us. So do the things that you need to do to get safe. And we talk about safety measures on the show a lot. If you're in immediate danger, 911 and the hotline. The hotline is there for you. They are a amazing resource of baddies, 1-800-799-SAFE, or you can text on a live chat at thehotline.org, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are standing by waiting for you. It's confidential. It's completely anonymous. And, you know, you can also reach out to me. Send me a DM at Bitch is a Bad Word Pod on Instagram. TikTok and YouTube is Bitch is a Bad Word. We have a phone number, 331-BITCHES. If you have something you need to share, I answer all the messages personally, and send me your unhinged texties from your exties as well. Join us on Patreon, patreon.com/bitch is a bad word. We are building the biggest, baddest bestie gang over there, and there's a whole community growing. I pop over there all the time. I'm like, damn, there's some amazing conversations happening with these just amazing, inspiring women. We are so grateful. Again, if you love this episode and you love this show, please do give us a like, share, subscribe, review to help, keep us going, keep us growing. I appreciate it so much. So we're going to get right into it. We've got Vanessa Reiser joining us. She has all the letters. She's an LCSW, therapist, author, Ironman, narcissistic cult abuse expert. She runs the states in wedding dresses for narcissistic abuse. We're so excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get into it. Vanessa Reiser, welcome to Bitch is a Bad Word.
Hi, how are you?
I am so good. I'm so excited about this conversation. We met the old-fashioned way on Instagram, and I found myself at some point scrolling through the feed, as I often do, probably doom scrolling, and trying to make sense of certain behaviors and that my ex was displaying, and even just like people in my life that displayed, going all the way back to my childhood of the toxic parent that I had. And we keep hearing this one word, and there's like, it's you have a conversation. I was just having a conversation the other day with some friends, and they're like, "Oh, the narcissist word. Like, really? Is it the new age, like sociopath? Is it just the new schizo? Is it the new, it's being touted everywhere. Everyone's using it. It's the new hot word." I thought, okay, there's no better person than you to come on and explain to us and unpack this dirty narcissist word for us. And so
Sure.
thank you for joining.
Of course.
I want to ask you, what is a narcissist?
Yeah, so this is a recipe of characteristics. It's not just one thing. This isn't about somebody who likes to take selfies, which is sort of the misnomer. Like this person is sort of obsessed with themselves. And while that may be true, there's like a host of characteristics, a sort of long laundry list that includes controlling, addictive, boundaryless, gaslighting, no empathy having, smear campaigning, passive aggressive, withholding. So there's this whole long list of things that they possess. And nothing really sort of stands alone. And that's what makes it really complicated and makes people really confused about it. But it's not just one thing. It's not just somebody who loves themselves.
Because that's what we sort of feel like. I always get this glimpse of like Christian Bale in American Psycho. Is he a psychopath or is he a narcissist, or are they one and the same?
I would say the glaring difference between a psychopath and a narcissist is that the psychopath is not as concerned with optics. Generally, they don't experience anxiety, so they're sort of like, I don't give a fuck what you think about me, right? So this sort of perspective of like, I don't care. Almost like a muted affect. Sometimes people will come to me and they'll say, I think my abuser has Asperger's. And I'll go, ooh, because it's possible that sort of this non-emotive, I don't care, can be psychopathic. Now, there are people who are just neurodivergent who could be narcissistic as well. But narcissists are like keenly aware of optics. They're really anxious about how they're going to sort of be portrayed. And that seems to be like the sort of gross oversimplification that I can provide is like the psycho doesn't care, the narcissist really cares.
And what is there one that's easier to navigate than the other?
No, because each is on a spectrum as well too. So we have the more covert version of the narcissist and the more overt, and certain malignancies. I actually think the more overt narcissist, who's sort of like pop collar, Ferrari driving, sort of quintessential douchebag, who's going to maybe, punish you with a physical assault, is actually better and easier to navigate because at least you can see who this character is. The more covert, kind of like, woe is me, victim mentality kind of narcissist is more treacherous because they will take from you something that you can never replace, which is time. And they'll sort of suck from you, 20 and 30 years of your life, and then surprise, the whole thing was a scam. So I think that's more treacherous. I would much prefer like the guy I can kind of see.
I love that visual because, we liken these people to the Prince Charmings, to these like charismatic con men, really, that are presenting the covert ones are presenting, wearing a mask, taking inventory of you, emulating you, chameleonizing, all those things. And that to me is like, that's the gut wrencher because you're falling for this, you're falling for something that's completely not real. And like when you're upside down and come out of this, that was my particular situation. I just couldn't make heads or tails of anything. Nothing made sense. I thought I was like, what's wrong with me? How could I not have seen this? Like you just feel like constantly bad about yourself. Whereas you do feel like the pop collared douchebag. You're like, there's no way I'd fall for that shit. Like, that's not me, like whatever. I'm not like, no, done. So those two, if you're dealing with a covert, no matter what you're dealing with, it's fucking hard. And then you put in I want to understand, does a narcissist, when they're in the situation where do they both have the same tactics of like immediate playbook, like love bombing? It happens in an order. Is there something that someone listening is like, if this is what, check these boxes and you're with a fucking narcissist? Or like,
I
do they
think
always have the same playbook?
yes. And I put that in my book, actually, is that they generally have the exact same characteristics with some variations. And it feels almost like, there's a mystery of it. It feels otherworldly, as if they're having like a meeting every month. And you're like, how did they all sort of learn how to do this stuff? You ever see like a school of fish and you're like, how do they know to like part at the same time? And like, it makes you think like there's some other sort of thing going on. And that feels also kind of like gaslighty in and of itself. But what my perspective is that they develop these tactics, these behaviors very early on because they need to learn how to manipulate and get that coveted supply, potentially from their parental units, siblings, friends, etc. So I think this origin is young. And I think that they learn very early on what works. And those same tactics actually do work. It's very Freudian, it's very Pavlovian, sort of positive reinforcers will get you what you need. If you do this, you'll get that. So they figure that out pretty early on. And yeah, they do the same things. But what you're seeing in terms of behaviors generally falls into that cycle of abuse. So if we were going to oversimplify, it would be the love bombing, the devalue, and then the discard, which on repeat cycle looks like this: the makeup session, the tension building, the fallout, the makeup session, tension building, fallout, and then you develop that trauma bond. So, kind of those characteristics are always interplaying with each other throughout that roller coaster ride and that cycle until you're hooked. And then when you're hooked to this drug of the makeup session or the love bombing, then they can kind of do whatever they want with you. And that's where it gets really wonky in terms of, are they going to get you pregnant? Are they going to get engaged? Are you going to buy a house? And then they again turn up the dial. Oh, you tolerated that? Let's try this. So that's kind of like the momentum that goes on, and there is a rhythm to it.
Hi, I'm Sarah Wayne Callies, and I played Dr. Sarah Tancredi on Prison Break.
And I'm Paul Edelstein, and I played Agent Paul Kellerman on Prison Break. Please join us on our rewatch podcast, Prison Breaking, with Sarah and Paul.
We're going to have all kinds of guests and never-before-told stories, so follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to our watch party on the link there. We can't wait to see you there.
And follow us on Instagram at Prison Break Podcast. See you there.
So when you're saying this love bomb and you say you're addicted, like you can't wait for that cycle to come back around, and the makeup feels so good that you're desperate to have that makeup part again. And you can't, like, do you find the women that you speak to in your own experience that the person on the, that's waiting for the makeup cycle will pretty much do anything to make that stay in that cycle?
Yeah, that is the dopamine kick. So what happens as victims is we become addicted to that drug, which is dopamine, because it just feels so good. Even sort of the removal of the devalue can feel good, depending upon how sort of punishing they are. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome. So you become attached to your perpetrator. But it feels really good to just have that relief of like not the silent treatment or something like this, right? So just the removal feels good. But it's very Pavlovian. It's a reinforcer. And it's almost like we're these like worker bees who are kind of pretty readily mind controlled. And it can happen to anyone. It's kind of scary to think that way. But when you kind of get into healing and this sort of radical autonomy and radical self-love, then you can kind of protect yourself better because they're all around you. But yeah, it's very much like a drug. It's been likened to a major dopamine kick like cocaine or any other drug.
When you talk about this is is this a learned behavior? Are these, a narcissist is born this way, or how do you grow a narcissist out of this fucked up garden?
I tend to be leaning in the camp of biological predisposition or genetic components. A little more than some of my cohorts. There historically has been a lot of talk about trauma being variable, but I believe trauma is always a variable. Trauma is going to impact all of us in different ways. But the reason why I theorize this is not based on any evidence-based articles or, it's just, I ran a daycare for 9 years when I was going for my master's, and there were just kids that were, biters or kind of drawing, pictures of stabbing other people in the head and were not willing to share or would be particularly aggressive. And I just remember, kind of reflecting upon that experience as something where they were just, maybe not as empathetic, and they were really seemingly born that way. And so I think I don't have any data, but I think that we may be trending towards where we start to study the brain as being maybe, corrupt. Something is going on where their empathy, their amygdala is smaller and they're not kind of understanding empathy. And what's scary about that is because as a society, we really need to cultivate that more. We've kind of gotten away from the Sesame Street days, and we're sort of in this individualistic, capitalistic universe of like, it's cool to be, a narcissist or something like that. So we're not really doing a good enough job to sort of massage that part of us, that communal experience. And so that's really disheartening. But I think I'm in the camp of I'm leaning a little bit more towards the biological piece.
And is there something that can be done if you're a caretaker and your child is experiencing or displaying those signs? Is there something that we can do to massage it out of them? Or
I think what I'm learning is that a lot of exposure to animals, right? Like some people have expressed studies that work around being around horses and the like. So like the vulnerable creatures, if we spend time with them, it can possibly sort of, bring out of us this empathetic nature, but I'm not totally sure. I don't have any data that I can provide.
it is interesting. I remember those kids in school and I am a mom, and there's been kids in our life that I'm like, there's hell no, we're not hanging out with this kid, because you see it, and it's like the kid that falls like in front of the other kid and is like desperate for help, and they're standing over them like laughing at them, or they don't know what to do. It's like you can see it very, very clearly, and it brings me to moments where I've experienced 100% narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, and while they're being the nastiest version of themselves, while they're emotionally and verbally abusing you, I remember sort of a smile coming over their face, like when I reacted. And when I finally just blew up, like, fuck off, and then I was like, is he smiling? Is he enjoying this? And that's when I think I started clocking moments in my relationship that were like, I really need to be paying attention, because this seems to be a pattern, but he seems to be enjoying the fact that I'm in pain.
Yeah. And I think that sort of brings up this idea of like, what is a narcissist versus what is a sociopath? And I think there are often overlaps. But the sociopath really gets a charge out of people's pain to the extent that, sort of murder is exciting, this kind of thing. So, on that spectrum, where do they really find joy, and like, where is it sort of sadistic and stuff, sort of that overlap, is scary. But I think narcissists are scary enough, because even the concept of being indifferent to someone's pain blows me away.
Oh my
So
God.
that's already a nuance that I can't even manage. So not only are you indifferent as a narcissist, so now you're going to, as a sociopath, really like it, like this is a charge, or you're getting jazzed around. No, thank you. So they're both dangerous in that regard. I usually say, the narcissist steps over the dead body, but the sociopath put the dead body there. So, but that's still, to me, that's too much of a slippery slope. Like, how are you stepping over, right? So
Right.
That's what makes it really, interesting, is this idea of not having any empathy, or even being excited by people's pain. It's mind blowing.
So we hear this word a lot too. So explain what the narcissist supply, what does that mean?
So the narcissist doesn't feel much of anything. So if our baseline is kind of mid-range, they're kind of below, and they're always pulling people down to sort of join their misery. But they don't feel much of anything. They will take good or bad attention. That's why they're highly antagonistic and create chaos and triangulate and manipulate, so they can sort of feel like they're in control of something. And because, they don't feel anything, they'll do just about anything to get that dopamine kick. And that's what we see as supply. Supply is something that's going to feed them that. Usually there's the main supply, which might be their marital partner. And then they generally have a gaggle of supplemental supplies, which can also be their children, right? So even if they're not having extramarital affairs, these supplemental supplies can include subordinates or people that work for them, or their children, or the neighbor, their mom, whatever it is. They kind of glean that dopamine kick from all of the characters that are in their periphery. It's the same thing as a cult leader. The cult leader almost always has like a numero uno minion, and then there's this fellowship, right? So it's just on a broader scale, but that's what the supply is. It's just somebody feeding the narcissist, the sociopath, or the psychopath.
So if you become aware that you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you can see this cycle where you're saying like the love bombing, the devaluation, and the discard, and those are happening. Do those moments when you're with them, do those become frequent? Like, does the cycle become more frequent as your relationship goes on? Are there ever any instances where, that cycle could be weeks, months, years before it cycles back? Or is it pretty predictable that it cycles on like almost like a menstrual cycle? Like, can we have an app to predict their narc cycles?
Yeah, great idea. It really is different with each abuser. I notice that the longer or bigger or wider the gaps are between, the love bomb and the discard or the fallout, the longer the relationship is, and the softer the trauma bond is. If you have a very rapid cycle of up, down, up, down, up, down, I see the trauma bond as being particularly damaging because the cortisol levels are sort of up and you're really, really dysregulated in those environments. But I see those relationships also lasting less, right? So they're sort of shorter. If you have like we fight every week, it tends to sort of not have that sustainability. If you're going the longer, roller coaster ride, those unfortunately to me are more dangerous because that's going to be the long-term relationship of 20 years or so where it's, really, really hard to get out. So as I mentioned, like sort of that the more acute the trauma, the better off, because maybe you'll get out of it. And I oftentimes say to myself with my clients, like, I wish he would just like hit her so she can get the hell out of it. It's terrible to say, but at least you have like a thing that you can kind of, something tangible that you can say, okay, that's it. That's the boundary. And even then a lot of people will still stay, but this other stuff is just impossible to manage if you don't understand it.
Well, because they're really good at making it your fault. And they're really good at, when completely gaslighting you. So you start gaslighting yourself and you truly believe like, I must, maybe if I hadn't done this, maybe if I wasn't such a bitch, maybe if I would have bought the whole milk instead of the almond milk, we wouldn't be having this fucking fight today. I say this all the time. I felt like the stupidest woman on earth when I was with this person because it didn't make sense. So it was constantly, you don't know how to communicate. You're too sensitive. Why are you making such a big deal out of everything? All these statements that were made that you kind of go through feeling that way about yourself. And then you're looking at other parts of your relationships with other people and you don't have these problems with them. So I always kind of like when you have these women in your office, do they ever say like, I only have this problem with him and nobody else?
Well, they get so isolated. They end up becoming only around their abuser. And And, you know, to your point, like when you're being gaslit and you're being told that you're the problem and they have no accountability and you're the bitch, I often describe the reason for my having only stayed for a short period of time, because it was only, for me, a very short relationship in the big picture. I credit that to being a bitch. I'm so glad, and this is like a full circle moment because of the name of your pod, but like, being a bitch is what saved me.
Hell yeah.
That was the reason why I was like, bye, because I was like, there's no way I'm dealing with this. And so what happens to a lot of us is like, we're sort of societally told, like, don't be a bitch, be a nice person, you know, da da da. Maybe I'm being this. And I still had that. I did. But in the end, thank God I was a bitch. I would have wasted so much energy and I would have been absolutely bankrupted, destroyed, fully, like suicidal, just, you know what I mean, the whole nine, had I not been a bitch. So my advice to anyone listening to this is like, lean into that. Who cares what anybody thinks? They're going to think you're a bitch anyway. That's what society, you know, sort of does. So you might as well protect yourself. And I try to counsel my clients on like, you know, that isn't necessarily something that's bad. When you hear that, that means that you're empowered, and people don't want you to be that.
I love that. That big bitch energy is what we are supporting on the show, because I was called a bitch so many times to my face by my ex that like just, and a cunt and a horrible mother and all the things. But being called a bitch all the time, and, you know, young kids, my young child hearing me being called a bitch and asking me what it was. This is the ethos of the show. He's like, Mama, what's a bitch? I said, well, like, bitch is a bad word. And he wrote it down on a Post-it note, and his little writing. He spelled it all wrong. And I was like, hell yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. But we also say on the show, bitch is a rad word when you get to this point where you're like, I'm fucking done. And I love that you said they're going to call you a bitch anyway. They're already calling you a bitch, and they're already smearing you. They're like, I think I've heard you say somewhere like the smear campaign has started long before you are leaving.
Yeah, they plant those seeds very early on because they know that discard is coming. They know that you are a utility that they will ultimately get rid of. And they're planning that all along. They're going to tell their family, you know, she didn't really cook, or they'll tell the children, you know, is mom okay? Like all of these sort of like inference and innuendo and eye rolling and like, are you okay today? You know, all this stuff. So like they're planting all those seeds early on. And when I came to see and realize like what was coming, I realized like I have to get ahead of this and sort of manage the optics of this because I have a reputation. And I continue to do so to sort of manage that to the best of my ability. Listen, I'm a fallible human being, make mistakes and all of this. But I mean, that stuff starts very early on, which is really chilling because you're sitting here sort of selling your abuser to your family and friends and being like, no, you know, he's a good person, all of this stuff. And the whole time they're literally plotting your demise. And like, that's wild to come to learn about.
That is the come to Jesus moment. That is so hard. I cannot even tell you the amount of conversations that I'd have with my friends in the family that were like, when I was in the silo, I was sort of like coming out a little bit and like putting my toe back into reconnecting with people. I would always be like, he just had a bad day. Or I was constantly excusing the shitty behavior that everyone on the outside is like, Lindsay, get a fucking clue. Like, this is not just we see this everywhere with this person. We're just sort of waiting for you to like wake up and like come join us on the side of reality. And the whole time I learned this term of like this negative advocate. I'd go to their negative advocate and be like, you have to understand the shit that he's doing is so bad. And she's like, well, I don't know. What did you do? You know, and I'm like, what? How can you not believe this? And now I realize that the entire time he's tainting the waters. So you do look unhinged. You do look crazy. They're already predicting. They're probably even like, I bet you she'll say this. I bet you She's going to
I
come to you.
remember being at a concert with another couple, and he whispered something in my ear, and it was something antagonistic, right? So I remember being like, what the, like this? And he sat back in his chair so that the other couple could witness. Now, at the time, I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, why is this fool sitting back? And I was like, later, upon reflection, I was like, oh, so all of those things were so that at the end of the day, you know, this idea, this narrative could be launched properly around how I was, you know, totally insane. And I see this a lot in my practice. You know, I have narcissists that come in for couples counseling, and their entire sort of session is spent, you know, trying to describe their partner as being unwell. You know, this, you know, she's, I think so, you know, she's done this, she's been missing appointments, and I'm really concerned. I'm like, shut up. Like,
Oh my God.
you could see through it. It's really, really interesting stuff when you kind of see behind like all of that. But it's interesting, you know, really learning about the smear campaign. It's something that people think starts afterwards. Like, it's just like, you know, like with Blake Lively, like it's sort of that stuff began at some point after it ends with us, but it doesn't. It starts very early on.
It is so true that, and it's important to know that, like when you, and they're cherry picking who they're going to have this smear campaign to, and it's like, that's why it doesn't make any sense when it all comes out. And there's nothing worse than knowing like 100% how something went down from like A, B, C, D, all the way to Z. Like, you know, it's a timeline. And when they are like, nope, that didn't happen that way, and they're flipping and switching, and you're in there, that makes you a fucking your own psycho. You're like, no, it happened exactly this way. And they're like, no, I don't know. Maybe she was drinking a little too much that day. Remember, I think she's kind of got do you think she has a drinking problem? Like, you know, whatever it is, you're like, wait, no, but I don't remember drinking. I mean, I did have a drink. Well, see, there you go. Like, however it is, they pull the one thing out of, or when you like come to them and say, hey, I didn't like it when you did this. In a normal relationship, the other person can like hear the feedback, not take it personally, and you can recover. When you're with this kind of person, you say it, and it's like this huge blow up all of a sudden is happening, and they're pulling things from like 18 years ago, and like, oh, and your mother, and you sound just like your sister, and she's a bitch, and like, I didn't like her anyway. You know, and then you're in these conversations going, I just said I didn't like it when you weren't really nice to me last night. And like, forget it. It's not even worth it.
Yeah.
Is it even worth trying to go
Right.
chase after the snake that just bit you and ask why?
Right. And the leveling up occurs when you realize engaging with that is a waste of your energy, and you're just feeding the monster. And it takes a long time for people to get there, where it's like, I'm not going to feed this monster anymore. And another thing I remember when I left was I thought I was a narcissist, because to your point, I was so gaslit and so confused. And I was also being cyber gaslit. So there were text messages that were coming from my phone number to like other people from the desktop, and all this weird stuff that was going on.
Oh my God.
And I was like thinking to myself, did I send that? You know, I was like confused.
Oh, shit.
I became very confused. I was like,
Oh God.
and then I was like, am I the narcissist? I went through this whole thing. And the thing that saved me, quite honestly, from that really sort of scary experience was I knew I was a lot of things, but I wasn't a liar. Like,
Okay.
For me, like to a fault, like I will tell the things, right? And I just was able to really self-soothe around that. I was like, you know what? I'm not a liar. And a narcissist is a liar, a pathological liar. So it was very comforting for me to have that sort of like come to Jesus moment, and I could kind of climb out of the hole with like sort of clutching on to that reality. Was like, that was my saving grace, because I knew a lot of things about myself, but that was just not, you could never accuse me of that. Like, you could say a lot of things about me, you know, plenty of people could. This was not that thing. So I was able to manage my way out. In other words, when you're in those circular conversations and you're being gaslit and you're fed and your brain goes to complete mush and you're foggied all the way out, you have to find something about the characteristic list it's in my book, and just lock onto that, because that will get you out of the hole.
I want to say this to like our besties that are listening. This baddie on this call right now she's got all the letters. You've got all the, like, you've got the training, you've got and you found yourself in a relationship where it happened to you. So if you're sitting here and you're like, I'm I don't have a degree in this. I don't have psychology. Like it happened to you.
Yeah, I was a therapist at the time. I had no idea what the hell this was. I learned about it on TikTok.
I love it.
And then I was like, oh my God, TikTok was like the underbelly. And then I began to learn and I was like, what? So then
so you're in this relationship with this person and like just walk us through how it started for you.
Yeah, I found myself swept away. And before I knew it, I had left my job and I had been isolated and moved in really quick and was being really love bombed with lots of expensive, wonderful, fascinating things. And then I could slowly see myself just like I was just gone. I was going to sleep really, really early and trying to like relax because I was so exhausted from managing what felt like a full-time job, really. And then ultimately I made the decision to flee because his ex told me what he was. And I was like, oh my God. And all I really knew about that at the time was there was no empathy. But that was enough for me because I was like, oh, that's not going to be a shared value.
Right.
And I was like, and I left. And I'm so glad that I did. It was with the help of one of my best friends. She sort of coached me through that. But I just left almost with like the shirt on my back,
So yeah, you were saying like you quit your job. And when you quit your job, because this is so important to like women that are listening right now, because like on the other end of this, when you're a mom and you're involved in this, the financial abuse is real, but it often starts with just probably something very charming. What did he say to you? How did you end up quitting your job? Was there a conversation?
It was more like, you don't have to be doing this kind of stuff because there was a lot of resources there.
Right.
And I was working in the Bronx at an outpatient mental health clinic, which I loved. The Jewish Board was such a great job. And, but yeah, that was, just kind of the temptation of that and sort of falling into, but it was pretty coercive. It wasn't like an outward statement. It was kind of like, oh, look at me. I'm, by the pool. I'm sure you're having a great day at work today. And it was kind of like, maybe I don't need busting my ass as hard. So it was the coercion was really subtle in that regard. So those kinds of things, it wasn't necessarily outright, but all of the other things pretty much were. I mean, there were a ton of really overt behaviors. But when I did flee, to your point, I was not co-parenting. My son has a neurotypical father. So I began to learn from my clients what real damage happens from the family court system. And sort of the worst part of this experience is nothing that I ever went through. The worst part of this experience is what I advocate for with my clients, and that is the family court system and what that does to people. And that's why I started this new initiative with my runs across the various states where I actually land at the family courts now. And this year we did Rhode Island, and I'm thinking about next year just running, 50 miles around the building. I'm thinking about trying to do a thing where I, go to, let's say, Delaware, and I just find the most vulnerable people and kind of get into that family court and just run a circle around the damn building and just shift totally. Because at the end of the day, that is where the narcissist, the chef's kiss is to co-parent, because this is the most damaging thing they can ever do is, take your children away from you. And so that is the work that I do is less about my story. It's advocating for what I see as the most horrifying thing I've ever seen. A real life nightmare is that.
Mm-hmm. I love that you ran in this wedding dress, like in Rhode Island, and just that's such an amazing message and so important, and like good for you being able to. You have this understanding. You've been there, and you got out. You got out. I mean, you're an educated woman. You're super smart. You're beautiful. You check all there's all the reasons why we think. I say this like, when they're coercive and when they're in that moment, it's really important to listen to what you said, that it's insidious. It's little. It's like these tiny moments, and you're like, I would look at you and say, of course you should be with like, have everything you could ever imagine. You should have the greatest life ever. Like and you in your mind too, as women, we're like, I deserve this love. I deserve these things. And, this is great. And when they're buying you these gifts, oh my God, like someone I was talking to about, this Cartier watch I had, they're like, just so you know, he didn't buy it for you. He bought it for him. He bought it so that every time you looked at that watch, you thought of him. He doesn't care. Or every time your friends looked at that watch and said, holy fuck, you have like a $40,000 watch on your hand. They think he's amazing. They think, and I was like, wait, what? This is even more fucked up. It wasn't for me. And I'm like, and it's like the first thing they're going to be like, give it back or rip it off your neck or whatever they're going to do. It's like everything that they're doing is for them. Everything. And even the coercion is like, nobody wants to sit at a pool by themselves. It's not that like, right. They're like, it's not necessarily, no offense. It's not just like, I want to be at the pool with Vanessa because she's the love of my life. He's like, I just don't want to be here alone and you're fucking working. Come. Like it's so slow. The burn is so slow. And when it's happening, you're like, you feel special. You feel like I'm the only person in the world that, gets treated this way. And he's so great. And so it's like, not that we're stupid, that we fell into this or we're money grabbers or we're that, like, it's literally, they make you feel like you're the only person in the room. Yeah. Because you are the only person in the room because you're in a fucking silo.
That's a really good point, though, is this idea that it's going to, like, something's going to hit you over the head. It really is death by a million cuts. It's such a slow burn, and you're not going to see it. I don't even care if you think you're the savviest, and myself included to this day as a single woman in the dating world, I have to be very, very, very careful because you just don't always see all the things. It comes in different shapes and sizes, and they're everywhere. So you have to be really, really careful. But that's such a good point. It's not going to be so easy to detect. I often say, though, the best way to keep them away, and this is super important because people ask me this all the time, like, how do I protect myself? I seem to attract them, da-da-da. It's basically if you stay connected to your job, your autonomy, your friends, your hobbies, your finances, your home, if you just stay completely attached to those things, the narcissist will go away because they want someone they can groom. So it's not that they're not going to come around you. They're all around you. It's just you have to stay completely solid and sure-footed in those things, and then they'll just move on.
Oh, snap. That's huge. So those are like going back to boundaries. If like, what is it? That's another test, right? That you can, like, if you think you're with somebody who's this way, try flexing a boundary on them and see how they behave, right?
Yep.
If they're like, oh, that's cool, we don't have to do that. Yep. You're like, okay, they're safe. But if they're like unhinged.
Yeah, I'm going to be going out with my besties, this weekend. It's like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good time. Good, green flag. This idea like, oh, I thought we were going to do something. Okay, red flag.
Yeah. And so in your situation, so you got out, I mean, I hate hearing any story where anybody's been in the situation. And then it always comes down to like, I left with like pretty much the shirt on my back. Like that fucking pisses me off because that is what they don't care. And the second that you were like, you're leaving, we're also having to deal with the discard and then feeling like I've just given up everything. I have to rebuild my life. I have to do all these things, and which is great, and do it, please. Like, know that the rebuild is fucking awesome on the other side. But like, you're a human being and your relationship has just blown up and you've lost everything and you're sitting around this emptiness. What's a tool we can give these besties? Like, how do they feel better? How do they work through it?
Yeah, you really have to lock arms with people that get it and true friends, because oftentimes after this fallout, you will go to look around you to see who has your back, and it will be somewhat scarce. People are going to side with your abuser. Unfortunately, because there is a groupthink or cult-like experience, you may even have to vacate a home where you leave your own children behind in some of the more extreme cases. So, in the cultic scenario, like in the Hasidic community, I have clients that have to literally leave their entire lives and families and everything, children, parents, like, sort of extreme version of this. But you really do have to sort of lock arms with the people that get it and your real friends, your real cheerleaders, because any therapist that says things like, but that's your mother, or yeah, but he loves you. There's a lot of people who are well-intentioned that can do a lot of damage. So if they don't like acutely understand what you've gone through, they can say things that are even more gaslighty. So I say, you know, sort of dive into this community, and really I feel safest with people who understand this. People who say things to me like, but he, you know, he never did anything to me, or these kinds of things. Like, it's just so dangerous. And so I really caution people to be very selective. The circle gets small, but it gets like silver linings everywhere. Like, I can't tell you in this community how much these people mean to me, especially like Mark Vicente from the Nexium cult, Dr. Nadine, Dr. Ramani. These people have just validated me and mentored me and supported me. Some of my childhood friends whom I don't know where I would be without. Those are like your true blues. And so you find those like warriors, you find your angels, and you kind of just stay connected to them, and you will climb out of it.
I love that. The circle's going to get smaller, but it's going to get tighter. I love the thought and the visual around that, because you're sitting here and you're feeling like, and I always want to tell our listeners, like, the people that like are not in your life right now, if you're in the silo, they will come back. They will be there. They'll so pick up the phone to that bestie that you had, that your ex has told you is crazy, not good for you, all the things. They've just done those things to push you out, to push the person who knows it better out of your life. And that person is waiting on the other end of the call for this call. And they're going to be like,
I love that. Your true friends will respond. That is actually really important, because there were a few that I had to push out. It was my own doing, because I was subscribing to a narrative, and I was like, oh yeah, he's right, you're bad. And then I became like the worst, disgusting, like version of myself. And then when I began to heal, and I was, you know, on that tour of like, oh shit, I was wrong about this. My true friends were like, oh yeah, no problem. And then some people could also just go fuck themselves, but that's a whole other thing. But there was a good amount of people that were eager to hear from me, and they're still around, and I love them. John, you know who you are.
shout out, John. We love you. We're like, the eating the crow for yourself. Like, I sat and ate a lot of crow by myself after I left the relationship. Just like, I can't, I mean, because this was like my worst version of myself was probably during COVID, because we were more isolated than anything. And I was like drinking the Kool-Aid of all sorts of shit. And later my friends would be like, you were fucking weird on the call. Like, you were saying all this shit. And one asked, like, are you in a cult? Like, what are you talking about? Like, this doesn't sound like anything like you. And I was like, what? Well, fuck you. This is, I mean, I guess you don't know the new me. We were evolving, whatever it was. I just sort of felt like I was having these conversations, and if when I was replaying those conversations, I was like, ick. I am so gross. Like, I don't want anything to do with that person.
Yeah, I remember.
How crazy.
Yeah, I was like, I had too many diamonds on, and I'm like a, you know, triathlete. I'm like very like tomboy. Like, it was so gross. I was the most disgusting version of myself. It's really embarrassing. But like I said, you're right. My true friends were like, yeah, it's okay. I got you.
Yeah, and it's like, that's when you're sitting there. I love you have too many diamonds on. Like, I was like stacking Cartier bracelets, just because that was like the only thing that like he'd buy. Later, shout out to Cartier. That's like how I paid my rent. Thank you to the Real for letting me sell my shit out, pay my bills. But I do look back, and it was like, I can see even the evolution of the person that I was in the valuation stage. And this is like where I was the coolest girl. I was like, they loved what I did. They loved my friends. They loved my beach ratty talk. They loved that I, you know, kind of was like, I don't really get it. Like, you know, explain it to me or whatever. And it started with like shopping, and like, let me take you shopping. And I did think it was romantic and for like one like pretty woman moment, but I realized there was like a lot of control in those moments of like, I'm going to take you shopping and we're going to buy these clothes. And I can look at even the shit that was in my closet, like after I left, I'm like, nothing should be hanging. I don't want anything. And it's not because of the memory. It's like, I don't even know who this woman is. The clothes I was wearing didn't make any sense. Like, I was the evolution of who I became was like, I look at pictures going, who in the fuck is this woman? Did you have that same experience?
I should have put this in my book, so thank you for bringing this up, but I'm going to say this now on the record. I had these boat shoes, like Sperry boat shoes, and they were so Vanessa. Like, this stupid, like, ragamuffin Irish kid from New York had these fucking boat shoes forever. And when I was in that relationship, I remember being embarrassed by them, and I would sort of tuck them in the back of the closet, and I would never wear them, right? And I still don't really wear them. Like, I just don't. Like, you know, I wear hokas, and I'm a runner, and I have injuries, so they're not really like... But I remember thinking about them when I got out of the relationship, and I was so glad that I kept them, because it's like a wink and a nod at who I really am. And that's what you want to stay connected to. And if you have somebody who's in a cult, like a family member or in an abusive relationship, we want to like give those visuals. We want to like remind people of who they really are before this experience. That sort of like can help them get out of the fog. But the boat shoes are really like a symbol, I'll say, for that girl I used to be. And so to your point, like, you know, getting back to that is really, really hard, but also there's whispers. Like, I remember hearing things about the boat shoes at my head, like, okay, whatever. But it stays with you, and you really need to find who you were prior.
Yes. I love the boat shoes. We need to do like some sort of collab with Sperry, but it's like, it's true. You lose who you are. You become, you know, as we say, we've heard, you become a shell of who you were. Your beliefs are more morphed. You know, we hear stories of like religion has changed, sexual preferences have changed. People are doing like things that they never would have done sexually before, things that they never would have done politically before, all the things. So it's like, it's not your fault that you are being brainwashed, you are being conditioned, because the more that you're, you know, and you do it too, right? Like, you say yes because it's just you're fucking exhausted. And you're like, I'm just going to go with this because it's not worth the argument. It's not worth like the wrath that's on the other side. And they've done a really good job of like manipulating so you're malleable. And you've done a really good job of being like, it's just, I'm saying yes because no is a hard word in this house. And I'm fucking tired.
Yeah. And I think the leveling up is when you say nothing. That's when you really kind of go, oh, I think I've got this now because I'm not doing this anymore. And then you just totally just don't engage.
DNE, besties, DNE. Fucking don't do it. They're like, I want to talk about the exhaustion period for a second, because you are emotionally exhausted. You are physically exhausted. But as I'm learning more about just cortisol, you mentioned that earlier in the show, it's like physically affecting you, right? These relationships are like damaging our health.
Yeah, I think, you know, that experience of being on high alert or being traumatized or being gaslit will increase dysregulation and then increase your cortisol. Like, for instance, the brain is like a fact-finding instrument. It's looking for information that it can go, okay, this 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, that feels comfortable. 4 + 4. Like, it's always sort of gathering data, and it feels cozy when it sees truth. So if you are seeing alternative facts, which is not a thing, and you are sort of questioning everything, it begins to fail, and then the narcissist can input anything they want in there. So whether it's a devalue, then you'll begin to subscribe to some shit about yourself and all this stuff. So that is an injury to the brain. It is a traumatic brain injury when you are being lied to on a consistent basis. So gaslighting is injurious, and what happens is what you're seeing with CPTSD and PTSD or trauma, because it is an injury to the brain. The brain is not going to be doing well when it's dealing with perpetual lies.
So you see things like, I would talk to my doctor, and I was like, I feel like I look through a screen. That was the only way I could explain it. There was like nothing physically wrong with me. Nothing, you know, I'm like, but I just feel like I'm always looking through a screen window or a screen door. Like nothing else is quite clear. I'm always feeling like foggy. And so I had babies back to back, And it was always like, well, it's the babies, it's this, it's that. I'm like, well, but I've had babies before, and I don't really remember this sort of physical experience. But my hair was falling out, my hair was turning gray, like also my nails were just like bend, like you could blow in the wind, and like all sorts of physical shit. And then I started having all of these like Hashimoto's, and like, we don't know what it is, so we're going to put you on all this medication. Did you have any of those experiences while you were in this relationship yourself?
I did. I had hair loss. My hair was falling out. I also started to stutter. It was subtle, but I remember being like, I couldn't in the gaslighting word salad circular conversations. I just was misfiring fully. Like I was just completely decompensating. So those were the two, but I do hear from a lot of my clients that they develop autoimmune diseases that they have to manage, all kinds of things. I've heard, anything from cancer to, any of the autoimmune diseases, but that's what happens if you're in those prolonged environments. So, the sooner you can get out of there, to your point, the abuse only sort of ramps up when you get out. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not like you get out and everything's over. That's basically when it starts, but you should still get out.
Okay, so we're walking down this line here where we're letting you know that your safety, always, we say this a million times, safety is first. Your healing can come later, but you need to get yourself safe. It's not time to find a therapist today. It's time to find your safety plan and your exit. So what is something that our besties listening, what's like some safety measures that they can take when they finally recognize that this is the relationship that they're in? Because I have this question too. Will these people, if they are emotionally abusing you, financially abusing you, we talk about that supply, when you start getting desensitized to their actions, does their abuse ramp up? Are you kind of setting yourself up for eventually this is going to go to a place where you will be hit? Like you said, you can't, you kind of want to be hit, so you leave, but like the longer you stay.
What happens is they're watching you tolerate. So if you tolerate something, they turn up the dial.
Okay.
Just to oversimplify. So if you're watching them, do this little thing, they're like, "Oh, you tolerated that. Let's try this." So in the end, when you do finally get out of there, that idea that you're no longer going to be tolerating anything is an injury, and then they are going to be very retaliatory in that experience. Their egos can't manage the idea of, you're going to leave me, don't you know who I am, this kind of shit. So that is where it gets really, really treacherous. And if you are co-parenting, forget it. I mean, this is like game on. They have to win, and they are relentless in the pursuit of destroying you.
Okay. That's such good information, and I'm going to have you back for a part 2 because I know that you have a hard out. But I always have to ask, if there's one tool that you could give our besties to put in their toolkit, what would it be?
To break the trauma bond, develop a list of things that they did to you. Make it very comprehensive. Put it in your phone. Make it fluid. You can add to it, delete, mostly add. And then make a list of things that you love about yourself. These are things that are not contingent upon how other people experience you. So they should be almost narcissistic. Like, I have a nice ass, I'm funny, I'm creative. Not the sort of caring, loving stuff. And while those characteristics are amazing, for this exercise, they're not so valuable because this is to empower you. What you want to do is devalue them in your mind and empower yourself through these 2 lists. And then you will begin to slowly see them for the unemployed drug addict loser that they are, and you'll feel more in touch with reality. But that's really the magic, because when the sort of rose-colored glasses come off and they are revealed, they're generally nothing.
Fuck yes, I love it. Vanessa, you are a baddie. I wanted to, we'll share more about your story. You're running. I want to help spread that message and spread that word. I want to have you back. And I also want to invite you to join my gang. We are a club. We don't accept, no dues, no nothing, no cult, but it's the BFF group, and it's Bitches Fighting for Freedom. And I would love for you to come be a bad bitch with us.
Thank you. It's awesome.
And it's amazing. We'll have BFF clubs somewhere along the way, but you are an inspiration. You have turned, your story, and you're empowering, and your pain into purpose. And I just absolutely love that. And I thank you so much for joining us today and, really just breaking it down for our bestie gang.
Thank you. Likewise.
And I will definitely have you back on. And thank you. Have the best day ever.
You too.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. What an awesome conversation with our new bestie, Vanessa. She has such a story. And every time I speak to somebody who has been in this relationship with a narcissist or experienced any abuse whatsoever, and they're educated, it's so important for me to drive that home to all of us, that if you're sitting here like, oh God, I can't believe I let this happen. How did I get here? They're good at what they do. Like she said, like this school of fish who just don't know which way they're going, but then they somehow know which way they're going. These narcissists, they're really good at hoodwinking you, charming your pants off, charming your everything. And you can find yourself, this woman left her job. She had a career. She had something that she loved to do. And she found herself abandoning that because it's so insidious. Again, we talk about it. It's like the frog in the boiling water. If you drop a frog in a pot of boiling water, it's going to jump the fuck out of there because it's hot. But if you put the frog in tepid water and you slowly turn up the heat over time, it's like swimming around, completely happy, has no idea what's happening. If you notice, though, the frog's always alone. So, of course, there's nobody else being like, hey, frog, it's hot as fuck in there. You're boiling. You're going to die. They don't. If they're swimming, you're happy, and the heat is turned up, and you're agitated, and you don't know why, and you're not happening, and then boom. That's how quick that's not how quick it is. It's insidious. It happens. It's a slow burn over time. It is not your fault. It is a them problem, not a you problem. So when you're sitting and you're listening or you're curious, you've got a friend who's in this, just be kind to yourself, be kind to them. They're dealing with so much shit. They have no idea what's happening or what's happened. And they've made the brave decision, or they've come to the realization, all the things that are happening. We're there. We had to just support them and have their backs, and not like, why didn't she just leave? No. She didn't even know. By the time she was ready to leave, it was like, she's got to figure it all out. And so it's important to know that it can happen to anyone. These con men, these charismatic narcissists, they have like a master class. They are the master class in how they can like just fuck up a life and walk over the body, as she said. They are the valedictorians of the school of hard narcs. The school of hard narcs. That is who they are. They run the show. They run the school. And they're trying to run you into the ground, but we've got your back, and we are building your bestie toolkit. And again, thank you for tuning in and listening and reaching out and sharing your stories with us. It means the world. I've got your back. We've got your back. We're here for you. You can find us on Instagram at bitchesabadwordpod, TikTok and YouTube at bitchesabadword. You can follow along the Bitches a Bad Word journey, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. Please do like, share, subscribe, and review this show. Share it with anybody. Let's spread the word. Let's build the bestie gang. Let's fucking go. Remember, there is no safety in staying silent. If you are in immediate danger, please use 911, crash on a friend's couch, do whatever you have to do to get yourself and your children safe. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is here for you at 1-800-799-SAFE, S-A-F-E. You can reach out to them anonymously, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. On the hotline.org, there's a live chat. A real bestie is waiting to hear from you. And it's anonymous. They don't keep a record of your name. You just go and get the help that you need. And if you are in the Southern California region, the BFF Alliance, bffalliance.org is also a resource for you. That is my nonprofit, and we have partnered with One Safe Place, an amazing community, amazing organization to get you the resources that you need immediately. So we're here for you. We've got your back. Send me your texties from your XDs and I'll read them on the show. So you start to see that you're not alone. You've got some place that you can drop them. You can put them in my DMs, or you can send them on our phone number, 331-BITCHES, and join us on Patreon, patreon.com/bitch is a bad word. We have merch discounts, early release, episodes without ad-free episodes, Tea with Lindsay. We are bringing back we're bringing back Taxis from the Exes, but in its own standalone amazing segment. So we'll be dropping it there too. And you can just go find a new friend, find a bestie over there. There's a huge community building and it's amazing. So we love you. Our editor is Kevin Mackler. Our music was composed by Drew Kevorkian. Our art design was created by Eric Johnson and Kevin Roche. Our interns are awesome. Big shout out, big love to Hallie, Tiffany, Bianca. You guys are making this amazing for us. We love you. And this has been a Caliber Studios production. Bitches being bad.